Parshas Pinchas, Tavshin Mem Daled, from Farbrengen. It was Yud Daled Tammuz, which means it was just that Farbrengen of Parshas Pinchas was immediately following a Friday of Yud Gimel Tammuz and a Thursday of Yud Beis Tammuz, similar to this year, except this year was Parshas Bolok, and that year in Tavshin Mem Daled in 1984, it was Parshas Pinchas. And the Rebbe started, after speaking about the idea of the Geulah, that it's like 3 days having to do with Geulah, Yud Beis Tammuz, Yud Gimel Tammuz, and also Shabbos has to do with Geulah. We know Shabbos is Me'ein Moshiach's times. So then the Rebbe started like speaking in the practical sense of what it means, the idea of the Geulah, to people like us, that we are like looking at the Rebbe, and the Rebbe was over here speaking about himself, primarily in third person. And he was making reference to himself about there's a Yid sitting by Farbrengen and demanding about the Geulah and asking about the Geulah, and other people can't understand it. And then there's different expressions that I hope to point out that are like a little bit outside of the norm, where towards the end, the Rebbe goes into like using his own language. In other words, he's speaking in first person about himself, I and you. And then he also even says something amazing about the order of the Geulah can be a totally immediate fashion, as we'll soon see. Okay, let's begin from the top of the page. In continuation, what we spoke about earlier in the Farbrengen, that the Rebbe spoke about the idea of the Geulah, of the redemption. There are those that it's awakened by them a wonder. Though from self-understood reasons, they don't actually give voice to this wonder. In other words, I guess out of embarrassment and so on. But the Rebbe is like reading our minds and telling us this is what people are wondering. They say, how can it be? They think to themselves, how can it be? That a Yid sits down to speak in public, and every Farbrengen he proclaims without ceasing. He doesn't cease speaking about one topic. Bias Moshiach Tzidkenu, the coming of Moshiach. And he repeats what the one whose redemption took place. In other words, the Frierdiker Rebbe proclaimed in the newspaper that the Frierdiker Rebbe published during the war years. He published a newspaper called Akriya V'Kedusha, and the Frierdiker Rebbe, the slogan that the Frierdiker Rebbe said in that newspaper was La Alter L'Geulah, that immediately to redemption. The whole slogan was La Alter L'Tshuva, La Alter L'Geulah, immediately for Tshuva, immediately for redemption. So he says there is a person that sits in public and constantly repeats this. Ubad Gosha, and that person that's speaking about it, in other words, the Rebbe is referring to himself. It's not just something that's in print, that it was printed. It's said in Akriya V'Kedusha, a newspaper that came out in the 1940s. But rather, this person that's speaking in public, in other words, the Rebbe is referring to himself, that he's saying it ala kavana l'bias Moshiach Tzidkenu apoel mamish, that the intention and the meaning over here is the actual coming of Moshiach Tzidkenu in actuality, l'mata masar tefachim, below 10 handbreadths, but take it from yad mamish immediately, b'yoyim za'atzmoi, this very day, ubenin dedan, in our situation that we're talking about, Yom HaShabbos Parshas Pinchas Tavshin Mem Daled, the Shabbos day of Parshas Pinchas of the year Tavshin Mem Daled. And so too, he says all the time that they should sing the song that Shibana Beis HaMikdash, the Beis HaMikdash should be rebuilt speedily in our days. And in other words, he emphasizes that we don't mean speedily in our day like some future time, some tomorrow, but it means literally today is the B'mheir Yameinu that he's talking about. The Vadei Maimin Kol Yehudi, surely every Yid believes Shemashiyach Tzidkeinu Yochel Lavi B'chol Rega, the Mashiach can come in every moment. Achakaloi B'chol Yom Shiyavi, I await him every day that he will come. Aval became still in all. Meharim Heim, they think to themselves, My Pesher an Hogel Ladaber L'Loi Heref Alinin Zed. There's emphasis on the words Ladaber L'Loi Heref. That what's the explanation for acting this way, to speak without ceasing on this matter, ulahadgish b'chol pam, and to emphasize every time shebereges a mamish yachalav Mashiach Tzidkeinu, then this moment mamish Mashiach Tzidkeinu can come. Davar shekasha lifal bereges shal adam sheisyaches lekachi al davar mitziusi. Something that's very difficult to effect, that a person should actually feel, they should be able to relate to it as something that's real, not like some type of dream like the Rebbe is going to talk about. If this makes sense, if you mention once about Moshiach, after all said and done, it's one of our principles of faith. What's the explanation for speaking and the excitement and passion about this with no end? And every Farbrengen. As if you want to force it in by force into the listener's head. Like the Rebbe is literally saying, and we've had this, I think, in a different sikh where the Rebbe used this expression, that this person is thinking to himself. In other words, the Rebbe is like saying what's going on in the mind of people, that the Rebbe is sitting there and trying to like push it into our heads, knock it into our heads. V'yiseirim is even more so, mamshichim lahar. They continue thinking, these people. That Yid that's speaking about the coming of Moshiach Tzidkeinu, below 10 handbreadths immediately. The very time that he's speaking about Moshiach coming this minute, he's holding on the table a siddur. In other words, the Rebbe is speaking about himself, that person is thinking about the Rebbe. The Rebbe is holding on the table a siddur. Why is the Rebbe holding a siddur on the table? So that when it comes the time after the Farbrengen is over, and he has to make an after blessing, he has to make a bracha achroina, he wants to be sure not to make a mistake. So he keeps the siddur on the table ready for when the Farbrengen is going to be over, and he's going to be able to look inside the siddur to make a bracha achroina. Now, what does it talk about in the siddur? In the bracha achroina, in the bracha achroina, it speaks about the Moshiach coming, the Geulah, in future tense. So what's going on over here? You're saying Moshiach is going to come now, and the Farbrengen is going to be over in 30 minutes, and in 30 minutes you're still holding on to the siddur that you think Moshiach is coming now, and you're holding on to the siddur that in 30 minutes you think you may need it to be able to recite the bracha achroina that speaks about the Geulah in the future tense. So too he holds on to the siddur to be able to say by mincha on Shabbos afternoon before Aleinu we say tzidkas chatzedek inyan hakosher magolos v'chul, something that's connected with exile. Tzidkas chatzedek was established in commemoration of the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away on Shabbos mincha time, and we are like justifying Hashem's judgment. That's what Tzidkas chatzedek is about. And that, the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, has to do with Golus. So it's davar v'hipucha. You're saying Mashiach is coming now, And then you're holding the siddur that you're going to say by mincha, it's Tzidkas Chatzedek. In other words, you don't believe the Moshiach is coming now. You need to hold on to the siddur for that. Elamai, rather what Masikim Haim, these people that are thinking these thoughts come to the conclusion, Inyan zeh hu begeder shel chol. This idea falls into the category of a dream. Cholem toiv yafe, a nice dream, a beautiful dream. Benusachat tefillah shayimrim beis birchas kohanim, like the tefillah that we say during duchening when the kohanim benchas. Sheyiu kol chalmais alayva kol yisrael l'toiva, that all my dreams should be upon me and all Yidden for good. So it's a nice dream this person has. Avaloi davar mitziyusa. It's not a real thing. Skip the brackets. Therefore they complain, or therefore they come and say, what need, if this is only a dream, what need is there to speak about dreams again and again and again without stop? So, yes, he says, the Rebbe says, I'm not saying that these people don't chas v'sholom believe in Moshiach. These thoughts are not a result of a lack of faith and belief in Hashem. Because every Yid believes the Mashiach Tzidkenu can come every moment. But still in all, by knowing that we still found in Geulah, we are still servants of Achashverosh. As opposed to going out of Geulah, tia ach v'rak will only be b'ritzoynoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Only Hashem could decide and choose when we're going to go out of Geulah. Like the one whose redemption was on Yud Beis Tammuz said on the 3rd of Tammuz, when he was on the train station on the way to go into exile in that transitional time. Not by our will did we go into exile from Eretz Yisrael, and not by our own steam and power and energy will we return to Eretz Yisrael. Our Father, our King, was the one that brought us into Geulah, and He will redeem us. Moshiach, Goel Tzedek, through Moshiach, the righteous Redeemer. So therefore, the experience and feeling of Geulah is so much permeated in a person's feeling until the belief about the Geulah is only in a very transcendent, like surreal manner. The Rebbe goes on over here. The Rebbe is like, in this case, actually pointing fingers to an individual that was suffering from something, and that he was worried about an operation, and the Rebbe was like reading his thoughts, but the Rebbe was also saying that you could see on his face that he was very worried, and he's calling on that person individually that he should go out of his own Geulah of being trapped in these thoughts. So too concerning the person's own private redemption. That a person permeates within himself, embeds and vests within himself a matter of Geulah until he can't release himself from it. Yehudi Tamim im Kolam Mailas, a Yid, who's a Tamim, with all qualities. In other words, he's a good Jew. Yoshev Bisvadas Sheyem Shabbos. He's sitting by Farbrengen on Shabbos. In other words, the Rebbe is talking to a person that's sitting there by the Farbrengen. Umeitzer v'doig. He's upset. He's worried. Makara. What happened? What's he worried about? The doctor told him that's very likely that after Shabbos he will need to go through an operation. So the Rebbe says, Why are you worrying about on Shabbos? On Shabbos it says a person needs to look at like everything, all their work is already done. What does that mean from a health perspective? Usually it refers to, physical work, going out into the field, whatever. So your mind on Shabbos, your mindset has to be, it's as if everything is done, the business deal is done, the field is taken care of, etc. The Rebbe says this is also concerning medical issues. In our case, a person's mind on Shabbos has to be as if all the medical treatments, I guess also this operation, is as if it's already happened, it's already after the fact. The fact that after Shabbos you will need to act according to the commands of the Torah, to listen to the words of the doctor. That's only something that's applicable when Shabbos is over. Why do you, if so, have to draw down upon yourself something that's unwanted and untoward? Especially, the Rebbe says, you can tell on this person's face. And because you can tell on this person's face how he's feeling, and how he's upset, and how he's worried, it's also disturbing those that are standing around him, because they see how upset he is. Then the Rebbe goes on and says further, in addition to all of this, we're about to daven mincha on Shabbos. That on mincha and Shabbos we say that my tefillah to you, Hashem, is a time of desire. In other words, the time of mincha on Shabbos is a very high eis ratzon dika time. It's an auspicious time for davening and for affecting Hashem's will, if you will. That's brought down in Zohar that there's 24 courts in the Bezdin Shalmaila. They're all transformed to good on Mincha time on Shabbos. V'ad kedei kach, to such a degree that it concludes, Shelakim b'rov chazdecha. Elakim with your much kindness. Hainu, this means to say, Shafil M'Shem Elakim Midas Adim Vagvura, even from the name Elakim, which is Hashem's midah of judgment and stringency and severity. Nimshach Roiv Chazdecha, comes down also much kindness. So it's an amazing thing that it's the most transformative time, that even Shem Elakim, which is usually about judgment and severity, it becomes the source for kindness, and not just any kindness, but much kindness. If so, this time, by the Farbrengen and Mincha time, Shabbos, the afternoon and Shabbos, is the most auspicious time to nullify all these things totally. And surely you shouldn't be suffering and worried about it. The Rebbe says, from the micro to the macro. In the same vein, people have this type of attitude when it comes to Geulah in general. They put themselves and they allow themselves to be absorbed in a Geulah mentality about the big picture of Geulah. So too, in our topic that we're talking about, since a person is so much permeated with the feeling of Geulah, he cannot sense any matter of redemption. To such a degree, when they speak with him about the redemption, he looks at it, it seems to him like a dream. But the Rebbe concludes the famous thing that, and we've had this on other occasions, that Geulah is the reality and Geulah is the Cholam. Like the Pasuk in Tehillim says, in truth, the opposite is truth. Is true, is correct. There's a mimer in Torah of the Alter Rebbe, entitled that it's a song of ascents, when Hashem will return to Tzion, we were like dreamers. We were, meaning in the past. During Golus, we were like dreamers. Sheboy Mevur, that over there the Alter Rebbe explains, Sheklolis inyan ha-Golus u'belukus ha-cholim. The general idea of Golus, not redemption, but Golus is similar to a dream. Keloimar, this means to say, the dream is not when one speaks about redemption. But that's the opposite. The existence of Golus, that's the dream. Why? How does a Yid come together with exile? It makes no sense. And in reality, the waking life of a Yid is the Geulah. This is the true being of a Yid. It's known, the Maimer of Alter Rebbe, and what it says, the 1775, that over there, it said, hinted, the Kates that would come either in 1803 or 1808, Va'afal Pikain, and still in all, Asreis Shanim Lifneza, tens of years before the Alter Rebbe said that, Hichriz Va'amar B'Teirasei Sha'Golus U'Cholam. He proclaimed and said in his Torah that Golus is a dream. He said that they should spread this out. Just like we need to spread out all matters of Torah Chassidus, and the idea of Torah in general. So even though in one Maimer, the Alter Rebbe seemed to indicate that there is a ketz, there's a time of Moshiach's coming that's only many years later. On the other hand, he said, what's the reality? The reality is Geulah. So therefore the Rebbe says, what is the complaint and what is the wonder? That all the Rebbe is saying, all I'm doing is I'm just repeating the words of Alter Rebbe. I'm not saying over my own words that Golus is a dream. It's not opposed to the redemption. That's the true existence in being awake. In addition to that, in the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe about Hayinu Kecholmim, where he speaks about Golus being a dream, he explains what is the nature of a dream. They say, a dream doesn't follow the laws of nature and reality, and it joins two opposites at once. It makes the impossible take place. So too, Golus is like a dream. Why? A person can combine two opposite things. That the whole day he's preoccupied with business. Every person to make his living. And along with the fact that a whole day is preoccupied with that, when it comes to davening, he can awaken within himself the love of Hashem, which seemingly is totally removed from these material pursuits. So in other words, the Alter Rebbe over here is saying a positive thing about a dream. This means to say, the emphasis over here is on the advantage of a dream. Therefore, despite that in the earlier time, a moment before, he was involved in worldly matters. In one moment, he could change from one extreme to another extreme, to awaken and to shake off the fantasies and the imaginary things of this world, and to arrive at its true existence, to love Hashem and to cleave to Him. How is that possible? V'chol zeh, and all this milos hacholim, because the advantage and quality of a dream, she'inyane chibur hafchim, that the idea of a dream is joining opposites, sheshar shelamayla b'yoser, that its root is the most high, k'mevur sham ba'aruch, like it's explained at length in the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe, because the Alter Rebbe explains that a dream has a very high source, and therefore, because it's a high source, it allows him to bridge the gap and to join two opposites. Like many times in Chassidus, it's brought down that to join two opposite things, you need to have a very, very high source, like bringing the neshama down into a body. The joining of the spiritual and the physical needs a very high revelation. So the Rebbe concludes concerning our topic, in a similar vein, it's understood concerning our topic. Though it's true, though in this moment we find ourselves in the actual darkness of Geulah, became, but still in all, since the general idea of exile is a dream, that its idea is the joining of opposites. So then in one moment the situation could become transformed from one extreme to another extreme. We leave the dream of Geulah and we come to the true being, the true existence of Geulah in actuality. And the key to this is in the hands of every single one. Not just in the hand of the majority of the congregation, rather in the hand of each man and woman, like it's brought down the Maimer Alter Rebbe, it's brought down in Tikkun Zohar, even if one tzaddik, and one tzaddik doesn't mean some holy Jew sitting in Yerushalayim and learning all day, but all Yidden are considered tzaddikim. So if one tzaddik, meaning one Jew, chayzer b'tshuva shleima, would do complete tshuva, b'doida in his generation, miyad Moshiach would come immediately. So therefore we see that this is not just something that's dependent on the community. This is dependent on myself individually. It's a clear ruling in the words of the Rambam. Also, mitzvah achas, if a person does one mitzvah, so if then he tilted the scale both for himself and the entire world to the side of merit, he caused both for himself and for the entire world a salvation. More like we said before, this could all be done in one moment, and like the famous expression, I await him in every day that he comes. Achake means specifically, I await. I'm not just saying I believe in his coming, but the Rebbe always emphasizes I await him. It's not just animamin b'chol yom sheyaveh. That's one thing. A person can believe the Moshiach can come today, and he can believe he can come tomorrow. But achakeloi means like someone that's waiting for something. He's standing at the door. He's expecting the package to arrive now because he got a text from Amazon that it's coming. I'm waiting for Moshiach to come every day. Al derech inyan, the yasel mechakeloi is similar to what it's brought down that he will do for those that are mechake to him, await him, in the dachin lemil de chachmas, k'mavor baruch b'hemshech tov samachvav. There's a whole thing that the Rebbe Rashab explains about how the idea of achake is a whole effort that you put in. It's not just something that's passive. It's something that a person puts an effort into. Now here is a very interesting thing that the Rebbe is going to say. And he's going to say, we know the Moshiach has to do all these things before it's finally the Geulah. You know, you got to build the base Mikdash, he's got to gather in all the exiles. There's all these things. So the Rebbe says, though the Rambam explains that there's an order. First, Yaakov Kol Yisrael Chul. First, the Moshiach has to coerce or convince all the Yidden to follow in the ways of Torah. And another thing is, and he has to fight the wars of Hashem. So there's all these different things. And so the person thinks to himself, what do you mean about Moshiach coming right now? There's all these things that the Rambam says Moshiach has to do before he can actually be established as Moshiach. These are things that are necessary to establish his bona fides, etc. He's got to fight the wars of Hashem. He's got to coerce all the Yidden to follow in the ways of Torah. So the Rebbe says an amazing thing. And I don't remember seeing this in other places. Could be the place where the Rebbe says it. These steps that the Rambam enumerates is only when the Geulah comes in the normal fashion. Masha'enkin, as opposed to kasher zochu, as opposed to if the Yidden merit. In other words, they have special zechusim, v'alachas kam v'kam alacher shekvar kol akitzim, and how much more so after all the foretold ends of Geulah already were passed by. Loirak boifin dachishana, not just in a way that I will speed it up, that Hashem says, Al gam boifin the be'ita. It's already past the appointed times for it. Like it says, the pasuk says, be'ita achishana, in its time I will speed it up. And the Chazal say, if it's zachu, then it's achishana. If it's loy zachu, then it's be'ita. But the Rebbe says, we have both we have already the be'ita already. We're already past the times that have been foretold. So then we don't have to worry about, did Moshiach accomplish this? Did Moshiach not accomplish that? Geulah take from Yad Mamish L'mayim Kol Seder Agbola. So then the Geulah comes immediately, without any delay, right away, beyond any type of order and boundary, even the ones that the Rambam set up. And the Rebbe says this is even more so, but Geulah, especially after the leader of our generation proclaimed immediately to the redemption of Vaiti, and he let us know that behold, he is standing behind our wall. Moshiach is standing behind our wall. This wall is not in the way of separation. It has windows, it has cracks in it. Like it's brought down. Moshiach is watching through the windows and looking through the cracks. In other words, there is already an association of Moshiach on the other side with us. It's a given, it's obvious that Moshiach's looking through these windows and these cracks affects the situation. Therefore, it's surely so that's in the hand of every single one to affect that the Geulah should come speedily in our days. Not just tomorrow or some other time. Mamish today. Shabbos Parshas Pinchas in Shabbos Parshas Pinchas in 1984. And in this Shabbos itself, we can affect that he can come before Mincha. And literally, in this very moment, we open our eyes and we see and we see it, Moshiach's Keno is found within us in this shul, in this yeshiva, basar adam, flesh and blood, neshama, beguf, a soul in the body, l'mat masar tvachim, below 10 handbreadths. Yeshnam hatoyanim, there are those that complain, the very fact of what I'm quoting, that itself you could ask questions. The proclamation of the leader of our generation immediately for the redemption. Behold, he is standing behind our wall. It was tens of years before. It was in the 40s, and this is in the 80s. And still in all, we don't see the Moshiach came. And even Eliyahu Hanavi didn't come to tell us about the Geulah. So therefore, what are you telling me? It's immediate. The Frierdiker Rebbe said immediate. It didn't happen for tens of years. This question itself comes because of the fact that we're permeated with a feeling of exile. And therefore we cannot free ourselves from the dream of exile. That the true existence in an awakened way is the Geulah in actuality. According to Torah, there is a need of Golus, and similar, because Golus is likened to sleep. Because the advantage in both, in Golus and asleep, like we find in Halacha, if a person swears that he won't sleep for 3 days, he receives lashes, and he can go to sleep immediately. When a person swears an oath and he doesn't keep the oath, so then the halacha is that after he didn't keep his oath, then he gets malchus. Then he's liable for lashes. But here it's like such an impossibility not to sleep for 3 days that we don't say let him try being up for 3 days, and then if he he falls asleep, then he'll be liable for lashes. No, it's such an impossibility that a person should be able to be awake for 3 days straight that we give him immediately lashes. Once we gave him the lashes, he doesn't have to torture himself anymore. He can go to sleep because he's already received his punishment and his kapara for the false shvuah. This means to say, we don't wait until we see in actuality that he can't sleep. This oath is not obligated him initially, but he made a false oath. That's why he gets a shavua. That's why he gets malchus. Because it's impossible not to sleep. Still in all, just like sleep is necessary, and Torah also says that Golus is necessary, still in all, we could fulfill the obligations, quote unquote, of that Torah said that we have to be in Golus. And the main thing is to literally leave the Golus. He's making a play on the word of fulfilled obligation in Hebrew and Yiddish, which we say Yoitze sein. Through the matter of Golus, the way it's in Torah, meaning to do it the way Torah says. What's the Torah perspective of Golus? Let's skip over to the next line of B'loshen HaYidua, like the famous expression, B'chomer v'kal v'chomer. That when it says that the Yidden were enslaved with mortar in Egypt, the spiritual idea of mortar is a kal v'chomer type of way of deriving halachas in the Torah, where a person says, it's fortiori, it's called. And Boldveinim dolibin hilchasa. The bricks is related to the word white. In other words, clarifying a halacha. Hainu yegia v'shibud b'limud HaTorah. The Golus could be replaced by toiling and enslaving in Torah study. The indul b'negel l'poel mamish, as opposed to actuality, tove agul l'mat masar tvachim, the Geulah should come down below 10 handsbreadths. And the Rebbe concludes with the bracha, Yudal v'hiratzon should be the will of Hashem, shaydei ribuy adiburim. You see, it's italicized again. Through much speaking, oidus b'yesh m'text keinu poel mamish, about the coming of Moshiach. In actuality, loirak ba'ifin shechazaka the gimel pamim, not just that we spoke about it in a way of a chazaka, that a chazaka is established by 3 times. But we even said it 100 times. Shaz nasal hergel, that's saying something or doing something 100 times, that becomes habit. Hergel nasateva sheni, and that habit becomes second nature. Hadlateva stam, and it becomes not just second nature, but it becomes one's nature. Even more so. Mea pamim ve'echad. It's 100 times as much, or 101 times or as much, and even more so. We should nudge so much down here below, and specifically, we should nudge so much above. Breda kaviyachol lahavi sagula poel mamish till kaviyachol. There won't be a choice, if you could say that, L'Gava Hashem, but just to actually bring the Geulah in actuality. Especially the Chazal say more than the calf wants to drink the cow's milk, the cow wants to milk and to give milk to the calf. Ubinyaneinu in our topic, more than we want, Hashem wants. Ubinyaneinu HaKadosh Baruch Hu chafetz b'nagula ha'idiyos. Hashem desires the redemption even more so. Shekein b'chol makom shegalu shechina imayim, because every place where the Yidden went into exile, the Shechina is with them. V'kasher tavei ha'gula, when the redemption will come, as I v'shav Hashem alakecha shvutzcha. So then Hashem will return your captives. It doesn't say V'heishiv, which means he will return others, but V'shav, which could daika, which means he himself will return. This is also the redemption of Hashem, that Hashem will return with the captives. V'ikir, and the main thing is, Carmen, like we said before, she is Gasham Acholman now, that the dream should become actualized, should materialize. And here the Rebbe, in a most unusual fashion, spoke in first person. Hacholam shalim, my dream. Shalom mitish davar hugam hacholam shalchem. That in truth it's also your dream should become materialized. I just bias Moshiach Tzidkeinu apoel mamish, about the coming of Moshiach Tzidkeinu in actuality. Take from Yad immediately. B'yoyim Shabbos, when it feels on Mincha, and Shabbos day before Mincha. V'ad l'chaloim, kol l'chaloim is till the dream of all dreams. Sheb'yoyim Shabbos atzmei boyim emanan nishmayel artzeinu agdoisha. That in Shabbos day itself we come with the clouds of heaven to our holy land. Eretz asher goymer tamedeina Hashem Elokecha b'mereish hashana v'tachas hashana, a land that constantly the eyes of Hashem Elokecha is in it, from the beginning of the year till the end of the year. U'mispalim fills mincha the Shabbos zu b'Yerushalayim in HaKodesh Beis HaMikdash Shlishi, and this mincha of this Shabbos afternoon after the Farbrengen will daven in Yerushalayim and the third Beis HaMikdash and Shamas begufim, souls and bodies, l'matam asarat tefachim below 10 handbreadths, b'poil mamish in